Xhanti Payi, lead researcher and economist at Nascence Research Insights, joins us now in Johannesburg for more. Xhanti, it's lovely to have you and welcome. Debut on Business Tonight. Great to have you.
Thank you.
You know, we've heard some of the thoughts that have come through from the opposition, very much like what we saw last week. But that aside, in today's debate, was the opposition calmer? Did they put forward real alternatives to what the president had delivered last week, Thursday?
Look, I think there's no doubt that, after the drama went away, they started, talking to each other. It sounded like, they wanted to make some points, even from areas where you didn't think there would be something quite as good. I mean, the EFF came out really against this new, the land proposals and land policy, and in a way contextualized it in a manner that actually made a lot of sense. Because we thought at Nascence actually that how did the president, or obviously these advisors, come to scientifically anyway, the numbers that they came up in terms of land restrictions. It didn't really make sense that you would sort of put a number and say this is where you will own and everything else. And they actually put it in context saying, if this would be something where you would actually, one person could own about 5 townships or something like that. So it gives you a sense of what this is about and actually whether it's realistic or not, or if it actually makes sense. So there were some good rebuttals. I mean, we had some issues coming out on education as well, so and energy. So there certainly was a little bit of rebuttal there that actually made a little bit more sense than the mess that we saw.
I thought the post-SONA debate was a really good thing, and in South African terms, South African parliamentary terms, was a great step forward. And in a perverse way, I think that what happened at the State of the Nation address was a step forward as well, even though it was conducted in a bad-mannered way by the people that conducted it. But on the other hand, I would say that there are certain democracies that are not as democratic as us, that the next day, the people concerned that didn't behave well wouldn't even be in the public eye now. There are people in, for example, the United Kingdom, if they send a tweet out that is incorrect, they resign and they say, I'm sorry, or have an affair with a colleague and they're gone. But there are people there that behaved abominably that are still in power. I don't understand it. That should be the debate.
Xhanti, that's for you to take.
Look, I think that there's something quite worrying really about what happened last week. Remember, one of the fundamental tenets of South Africa's economic growth and the miracle that we had in terms of growing this economy and actually going almost effortlessly into the global environment was the idea that we had a working constitution and a legal structure that seemed to make sense and work. And as we know, Parliament is the very base of that. And to have seen those dramatic scenes and how it seems that now our democratic dispensation and the constitutional dispensation is a bit shaky, is a bit of a worry. So certainly there is something to be said about how we need to actually get around this and get over this. Obviously, some of it is just drama, but a lot of it is definitely worrying. And some of the utterances that are coming out are a bit worrying. Yeah.
Xhanti, there's been this discussion now for endless amount of time about policy uncertainty. In other words, you just don't know what's coming next. A couple of weeks ago in the freezing Alps, President Zuma stood up and said, South Africa is open for business. Bring your money here. You're welcome. We need you. Economically speaking, we are desperate for foreign capital. We run such big so-called twin deficits. We need foreign capital desperately. And yet, one sentence in the State of Nation address, foreigners can't own land.
Yeah.
How does this happen? Why is there such, one week it's one thing, the next week it's something else? How can this happen?
Look, I think the one thing that we need to understand, and I think it starts from how the ANC itself thinks in government, is how they think that they have to keep catching up and fighting policy and going back to their original principles. So the land issue is that, but it's worrying, of course, because while they would say, look, it's about a debate, a long-term debate, many people are not engaged in our long-term debates consistently, so they catch one line of thought. So they would catch the one part and say, look, that's what was said. And in their minds, they think, well, we're going to debate this for a long time. I mean, policy in this country takes a long time anyway. So we do need that sense in which we actually stabilize policy. I agree with you completely. So that people have a sense of what's going on. And in this land issue, it actually has to be explained much better and seem to be working. But certainly, there is a mix of signals. Even President Zuma actually gave an interview the day after the State of the Nation. He was asked about this in terms of, one minister will say one thing, another minister will say another, the president will say one thing. And he seems to have agreed that there is a problem in that regard in terms of the messaging that's coming out, even within cabinet.
Final question. I mean, I think there's general consensus amongst most South Africans about the state of the nation and that we are in turbulent times, if I may call it that. But what about the future of the nation? Listening to the debate today and maybe also reflecting back on the actual SONA that was delivered last week, what would you make of the future of South Africa? Big question, but no doubt you have an answer for it.
Look, there's no doubt that we are facing a long term in terms of the kind of dynamic that we're seeing. South Africa has to sort of reach another state in which we make sense about our inequalities and the problems we haven't solved over the past 20 years or so, since the dawn of democracy. So we've got to sit, I mean, we've got labor issues that are unresolved, and, you know, and the Labour Federation and everybody else who's involved in that are playing politics. And they're going to play this politics for quite some time. So we have to be ready, and I think a lot of companies need to actually make themselves ready, investors, to find a way to think about this and how they actually plan going forward. So there's no doubt that the kind of turbulence we're seeing is here to stay for some time.
Xhanti, lovely having you at the desk. A very big thank you to Xhanti Payi from Nascence Research Insights.